Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello and welcome to another new episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and today I want to talk to you about a pressure that you might not even be realizing that you're carrying, because it doesn't always speak loudly. It doesn't always sound like shame. Sometimes it sounds like I need to get it together. Sometimes it sounds like I want to feel more in control. And sometimes it sounds like people won't take me seriously unless I look a certain way. And this is what I call body as billboard energy. And so that's what this episode is about. This episode is about if you have this belief that your appearance should be proof, should be evidence of your discipline, of your health, of your success, your strength, your wholeness, right? If you've ever felt like your body needs to say something about who you are, then this conversation, this episode today is for you. Okay, let's talk about the silent pressure for the body to be proof, right? So whether you're in a leadership position, whether you're a mom, a health conscious woman, or someone who just simply wants to come across as put together, there's often an unspoken belief, right? An unspoken standard that your body is part of the resume, right? That if you look like you've mastered food, if your body is smaller, tighter, glowing, more together, you'll finally be seen as someone who has it all figured out. You finally think people will believe that you've mastered your life. This is something that feels important to your self-esteem. But what happens is your body starts to feel, and your relationship to your body becomes a performance. It's like your body is an asset, and it's it's like I'm losing the word, but it's like when you're on stage and you have accessories on stage, right? And your body is like one of those accessories that needs to perform for your credibility. And sometimes this pressure is so deeply ingrained that we don't even notice it. In fact, we think it's normal, right? We think that this is just the way it is. And it's like, the thing is, and I hear this all the time about, in the mentorship, and I do a Q&A every week, and people can submit their questions. And a question that I get every week is, how can I love my body more? And I think that question is so insightful, and it's so telling, because this body as a billboard energy, it's not just about vanity. It's about value. It's about being taken seriously. It's about being seen, being enough. But here's the problem. When your body becomes a billboard, food then can't be enjoyed, right? Food becomes something that's just part of the whole stage act. And what happens is your self-worth becomes conditional on whether you're winning the game of appearance, because you're leveraging your self-worth for self-esteem. Okay? You're leveraging your self-worth for self-esteem, because self-worth is internal, a feeling of internal value that you get from the inside, and self-esteem is often value that we get from how the outside world perceives us. Okay? So how does this dynamic and how does this pressure fuel food struggles? So think about it. When your body is the evidence that you're using to prove your self-worth, every food choice, right? So it's not just your body, but it's your choices with food starts to carry a message, right? You might eat kale and grilled chicken at lunch, right? Which I eat a lot and there's nothing wrong with it. It's a high nutritional value meal. It's great. But for you, it's a measure of your worth and your goodness. And there's something off about that for you. That's why this isn't about food. This isn't a food thing. This is like a relationship with the messages that the food is giving you, right? So you might eat like a really high nutritional value meal, which is totally great. It's not that you're on a diet. It's not, but you associate that with being good and you associate that with your worthiness and your value and your appearance. And then because it's not authentic, you come home and you can eat an entire bag of chips alone after everyone's gone to bed. Or if you live alone, the second you walk into the house, you're just like, you have this compulsive energy to eat. And it's not because you're undisciplined. Okay. So this is what people sometimes think. They think it's like a problem with them. It's not. It's not because you're undisciplined. It's because you're just exhausted from the act, from the performance. Because you're not just eating. Okay. You're not just eating the healthy nutritional value because you have a connection to your value from an authentic place of self-worth and you're nourishing yourself. You could be doing it because you want to have this appearance that you have it together, right? You're managing an image. And what happens with that is that it turns meals into a minefield. Okay, it turns meals into a minefield. It turns positive activities and behaviors and choices, it turns it into something that feels heavy and that feels like punishment. And that triggers something within us to feel trapped, right? And eventually could lead to feelings of negative self-worth, right? Like a skipped workout suddenly could mean shame. A slice of cake means failure. A few pounds gained means your whole identity is at risk. And this kind of pressure is the perfect breeding ground for emotional eating, emotional overeating, the yo-yo diet cycle, that chaotic addiction to what feels like an unsatiable compulsion with food and this obsession to go on a diet. Because when food becomes entangled with how you want to be seen and perceived, right? Not seen like how we talk about seen in our circles of like feeling known, right? Because food becomes entangled with how, because we're not talking about being known, or talking about being perceived, right? So when food becomes entangled with how you want to be perceived, not how you feel, not how you're known to yourself, right? Authentically, you lose the connection. You lose the touch with hunger. You lose the touch with pleasure. You lose the touch with ease. And food stops being something that you enjoy. It becomes ultimately something that you negotiate with in private, okay? You lose that ability for it to feel like a relationship that's nourishing. remember what it felt like to be stuck in the cycle of emotional eating. I tried every diet out there, counting, tracking, restricting, but nothing ever worked. Food controlled my life, my thoughts, and I constantly felt guilty after eating. But once I learned how to heal the emotional triggers behind my eating and trust my body, everything changed. I stopped obsessing over food, the weight started coming off naturally, and I found real freedom in how I ate and lived. So, I created the Sober Eating year-long mentorship to help other women experience the same transformation. So you can stop battling with food, you can lose weight without deprivation, and you can feel confident in your body again. In this mentorship, you'll have access to my proven nervous system rewiring method. You'll have access to live coaching with me, weekly accountability, and a community of women who truly understand your journey. You'll also have free access to my signature programs, the Emotional Eating Solution and Decoding Permanent Weight Loss, valued at $2,000. Click the link in the show notes to explore the mentorship today. You don't have to do this alone. I'll be right there with you every step of the way. Okay, and this isn't freedom. Okay, this state of being isn't freedom. It's a constant state of being in a performance. So what do we do instead? Okay, so if you're listening to this and you're like, I do this, right? I make food choices to be perceived a certain way. I have body as billboard energy, and I know that it's making me miserable. I know that it's creating a disconnect with myself, right? So what do I do instead? Right? I know that it's hypocritical on some level to my values and what I really want. So we start by reclaiming this truth. This is the truth. You can write this down. Your body doesn't owe anyone evidence of your progress, including you. It doesn't need to be a billboard for your healing. It doesn't have to look the part for your growth to be real. You could still be powerful and soft, right? You don't have to be in control all the time. You don't have to have it all together. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to always make the perfect food choices, right? You could, but you can be put together and you could be still healing and evolving and growing. You could be flawed and still whole, right? So you could have goals and not do everything perfectly all the time. Not need to feel like you have this perception of doing everything perfect and right. Because when you detach from the external approval, you give yourself permission to eat in a way that actually nourishes you, right? That actually is generative and gives back and allows you to feel joy, pleasure, trust, right? Like you're not just trying to maintain an image. And so you could start by doing these things. You could start by asking yourself, what does my body need today? What would actually feel good to me, not just look good to others? And who am I if I'm not trying to impress anyone? Okay, these are the types of questions that I ask my clients when we are actually working on weight loss. Because your why, for why you want to improve your body in some way, needs to be about you. It needs to be about deeper needs. It needs to be about building the skill to be able to both enjoy food and make choices that are in integrity with your goals. And it needs to be, you need to feel a self-worth enough that these choices that might sometimes be, the more healthier quote unquote option, you're making that decision. It needs to be something greater than because of an image that you're trying to maintain. Because when it is, food becomes neutral, right? There's not so much of this emotional angst attached to food. Your body becomes more yours, which usually means that weight comes off, actually. And your identity becomes something that you own, right? Your identity, your sense of self-worth, it comes from the inside. And it's not something that you outsource to your appearance, right? You could start to build buckets and pillars of your identity that are not related to your body and your eating habits. So how do we start living authentically over impressively, right? Over performatively, or for what people perceive? So when you stop performing for this imaginary audience, your body stops becoming a billboard and it becomes a home. It becomes a home. You no longer have to micromanage every inch of yourself, trying to win, trying to win these invisible gold stars. You could start living your life that's aligned with your values, with your dreams, with your goals, with your, almost like this childlike imagination, things that we thought about when we were kids. We could start to access that again and put energy towards that, because not so much energy is going towards your food and your image, because we've shifted where the value is coming from. Because I want you to think about the people in your life, the women in your life right now. Okay, think about the women that you find the most magnetic in your life. Okay, she's not always the thinnest. She's not always the most together, the most polished. She's the one who feels at home in her skin. Right? There's a certain glow. There's a certain aura. There's a certain essence. Okay, and look, I think that you have to know what that is for you. And that's why if weight loss is a goal and you don't feel that way, then, obviously we want to do what we need to do. But it's for you. It's not curated. It's not a campaign. Right? It's presence. It's easy. It's natural. It's safety. It's truth. And that's what embodiment looks like. That's what we want to get to. We want to get to a place of embodiment where we don't need some construct to make us feel like we're validated. So when you give yourself permission to let go of the need to prove your value through your body, you finally get to live in your body. Not for others, but for you. And that's what's really important. So if you are somebody that's like, but I really do want to lose weight, that's when we go back to what I said before about your why has to be something more than perception of others or some imaginary gold star you think you're going to get from society. Okay. So if you've been holding your body up as proof that you're worthy, you're successful, you're lovable, right? If you've been keeping yourself trapped in this chaotic cycle of dieting, of, emotional overeating, and, if you're in this cycle that we talk about all the time, I want you to take a breath. Gently ask yourself, what am I trying to prove? And who taught me I needed to? A couple weeks ago, I posted an episode about the mother wound, which we talked about women in our lives where this message might have been passed down generationally. There's other episodes I have where I talk a lot about narratives and belief systems that we walk around with that aren't ours. And between you and me, all of you guys, and this is something that I don't know if people pay enough attention to, but when we hold on to belief systems that aren't ours, oftentimes that is what shows up on our body as extra weight. That's why I work so deeply in my programs with women on reprogramming some of these deep-seated beliefs. And this is something that I'm very skilled at doing, right? Like, this is actually one of the most impactful skills, rewiring these belief systems so that we're acting from a place of truth for us, not other people's narratives, because carrying that is often represented in our body and in this present time as weight. Okay. So, healing really does start by stopping to measure your value by what others see, and start anchoring into what your soul deeply knows, which is your worth was never meant to be worn. It was meant to be known. It was meant to be felt. Right? You are allowed, like I said, to want to feel strong, slim, radiant, healthy, whatever that is. But you don't have to earn your value by looking a certain way, right? Because your body, it is not a billboard. It is your home, and it is the only home that we truly have in this life. Okay? So thank you so much for listening today. I really, really feel so strongly about this topic. And if you are a new listener, a longtime listener, please follow us on Apple and Spotify. And if you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And I will see you next time. Thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.